In 1963, a man in central Turkey knocked down a wall in his basement and found a tunnel. Behind it, a passage. Behind that, a staircase going down and down and down into a city 18 floors deep, cut from solid rock, big enough to hide 20,000 people. And no one knew it was there. It was an ordinary house in an ordinary town called Derinkuyu. He was only renovating. Chickens kept vanishing into a gap in the wall, the story goes, so he opened it up. Behind the plaster was a room he did not build. Behind the room, a corridor no living person remembered digging. He followed it with a lamp. The corridor did not end. It widened into halls, then narrowed into throats of rock, then opened again onto chambers with soot-blackened ceilings, into stables with tethering holes worn into the stone, past a church cut in the shape of a cross, and always, another set of stairs leading further down. By the time archaeologists finished measuring, they had a number that did not feel real. 18 levels, roughly 85 meters, nearly 280 feet, straight down through volcanic rock. That is a building the height of a skyscraper, inverted and hollowed out of the earth. Room for 20,000 people, their livestock, their food. A place designed so that an entire population could vanish beneath the surface, seal the way behind them, and simply wait for the danger to pass. We tend to picture the ancient world building upward. Pyramids, temples, towers reaching for a god. Derinkuyu is the opposite instinct. Someone here looked at the earth and decided the safest place to keep everything they loved was beneath it. To understand why, you have to go back, long before that man and his hammer. This is Cappadocia. From the surface, it looks like a dream that hardened, pale cones and ridges of rock stacked across the plateau. Millions of years ago, volcanoes buried this land in ash. The ash compressed into a soft stone called tuff, soft enough to carve with iron tools, hard enough to hold its shape for millennia. That single property changed everything. In most of the world, digging a shelter means fighting the ground, hauling out rubble, bracing against collapse. Here the rock gives way like firm cheese to a chisel, then cures harder as the air reaches it. Cappadocia did not just permit an underground city. In a sense, it invited one. And people took the invitation for thousands of years. Cappadocia is honeycombed with hollowed rock, cave homes, cliff monasteries, storage pits, entire chapels dug into the stone. Somewhere in the region there are hundreds of underground shelters of every size. But Derinkuyu is the deepest and the largest ever found, the crown of the whole hidden network. Whatever this place was for, it was the most ambitious answer to a question we still have to reconstruct from the tunnels themselves. So who carved the first tunnel? Here we have to be honest about what we actually know and what we only guess. Because Derinkuyu was cut from natural stone, there are no bricks to date, no timbers to test. The rock itself keeps no birthday. Every origin story for this place is an argument, not a certainty. One line of thought reaches far back, to the Hittites, a Bronze Age power that ruled this region around 4,000 years ago. If they cut the earliest chambers, fleeing invaders near 1200 BC, then Derinkuyu's roots are astonishingly old. It is a plausible idea, but it rests on very little direct evidence. Treat it as a possibility, not a fact. The stronger case points to the Phrygians, an Iron Age people who settled Anatolia and were famous, even in antiquity, for ambitious stonework. Many scholars place the first serious excavation between roughly the 10th and 7th centuries BC. That still leaves the deepest truth intact. We do not know the name of the person who first said, "We will dig here." What is not in doubt is the engineering, because you can still walk through it. The first problem of any deep shelter is not enemies. It is air, 20,000 people and their animals, sealed underground, would suffocate on their own breath within hours. Derinkuyu solved this before it solved anything else. The builders drove ventilation shafts straight down through every level, dozens of them, some plunging more than 50 meters. Fresh air fell to the lowest floors and stale air rose out. Many of these shafts did double duty. They reached down to the water table and served as wells, so a besieged city could breathe and drink without ever surfacing. Think about the confidence that requires to sink a shaft 80 meters into rock in the dark with hand tools and trust that the airflow will hold, that the well will find water, that the ceilings 4 floors above will not come down. This is not panic digging. This is design, refined over generations by people who expected to need it again. Then there are the doors. Scattered through the passages sit great circular slabs of stone, like millstones stood on edge, some weighing close to half a ton. Each one could be rolled across a corridor to seal it. And here is the detail that tells you exactly what these people feared. The doors could only be moved from the inside. A small hole through the center let defenders push and lever the stone into place, and it could be braced only from within. From the corridor outside, there was no handle, no grip, nothing to pull. An attacker reaching this point would find a wall of rock that had, moments ago, been an open path. Every level could be closed off on its own. If invaders forced one door, defenders fell back and sealed the next, and the next, giving up the city floor by floor, while the deepest chambers stayed safe. It is a fortress logic, turned upside down and buried, where retreat always leads further into the dark, and every door buys another hour. Stand in front of one of those stones, and the abstraction falls away. Someone shaped it. Someone tested how it rolled. Someone lay awake, imagining the day they would need to push it shut, with their family behind them and something terrible coming up the tunnel. The door is not just engineering, it is fear made permanent in rock. Now imagine the doors are shut and you are one of the 20,000. What was life like down here in the dark? It was not a cave. It was a city, laid out with a purpose for every room, and you can still read its neighborhoods in the stone. The upper floors held the animals, stables cut close to the surface, so the smell and heat of the livestock stayed above the people. Below them, living quarters. Deeper still, kitchens with blackened ceilings, storage rooms lined with jars, and the presses where they crushed grapes and pressed oil, because a siege can last through a harvest. There were wine and oil presses, communal kitchens, deep wells, and long refectory halls where people could eat together. There was even, on one of the lower levels, a room widely described as a school with a barrel-vaulted ceiling. Stop and hold that thought. Someone underground, under siege, still cared that the children kept learning. This was a place designed not merely to survive a raid, but to keep a whole community whole while the world above them burned. And there were churches, cut deep into the rock, cruciform chapels where people prayed by lamplight with tons of stone between them and the sky. That single fact reframes the whole place. These were not soldiers in a bunker. They were families who brought their faith underground with them and meant to keep it alive in the dark. But make no mistake about the cost. No sunlight, no wind, air that smelled of smoke and animals and too many bodies. The dark pressing from every side, lit only by flame. People were born down here and, almost certainly, people died down here. You did not come to Derinkuyu to live. You came so that you would not die above. Which brings us to the question under all the others. What was so terrible on the surface that thousands of people would choose this? For long stretches of Derinkuyu's history, the answer had a direction. It came from the horizon. It came as an army. The city we can see today was shaped most heavily in the Byzantine era, roughly the years 780 to 1180. This was the age of the Arab-Byzantine Wars, when raider armies pushed deep into Anatolia year after year. Christian villages sat directly in their path, with little warning and nowhere obvious to run. So they built downward. When lookouts saw dust on the horizon, the whole town went underground, driving the animals down first, then following with children and grain, then rolling the great stones shut behind them. Raiders would arrive to find an empty village and a silent hole in the earth they could not follow into. That is the genius and the sadness of Derinkuyu together. It was not built for conquest or trade or glory. It was built for waiting, to outlast a raid that might burn the fields and the empty houses above, but could not reach the people below. And it worked again and again, generation after generation, for centuries. That is exactly why they never stopped. Each threat became a reason to dig one more level, seal one more door, sink one more shaft toward the water. And Derinkuyu was not even alone. Beneath Cappadocia lies a whole network of these buried refuges. Derinkuyu is linked to another underground city, Kaymakli, by a tunnel running some 8 or 9 kilometers through the rock. An entire population could move between cities without ever stepping into the daylight. Picture that for a moment. A hidden road under the plateau, kilometers long, connecting one secret city to another. If one refuge was breached or ran low on water, its people could slip through the earth to the next. The surface belonged to whoever held the sword that year. But the dark belonged to the people who lived there. In time, the raids faded, the empires changed, and the people stopped needing the deep. They moved back to the surface for good. The doors were left where they stood. The wells went quiet. Houses were built on top, generation after generation, until the city below slipped entirely out of living memory and became just a story about a strange gap in a wall. Until 1963, and one man's basement wall. Once the tunnels were open, the discoveries multiplied. More than 600 separate entrances have since been found across the town, many of them hidden under ordinary houses, in ordinary basements, exactly like his. People had been living their whole lives directly on top of the ancient city, and never knew. Today, a few of Derinkuyu's levels are open, and you can walk part of the way down, ducking through the passages, past a rolling stone door, into the cool and the quiet. But most of the complex is still closed off, and archaeologists suspect there are shafts and chambers, even whole sections, that no modern eye has ever seen. So the next time you stand on solid ground and think you know what is beneath your feet, remember the man with the hammer. He was only fixing his basement, and the earth opened up and handed him a city 18 floors deep, built by people whose names we lost for a fear we can only imagine, and kept perfectly, patiently, in the dark, waiting to be found.